You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. It is Thursday, but Senator Sanders is going to be traveling tomorrow, so we're going to do Brunch with Bernie a day early. So get your calls ready. Our national town hall meeting is commencing right now. Senator Sanders, welcome.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you. What's on your mind and agenda?
Well, the reason I can't do the show tomorrow is Senator Jim Jeffords' funeral. And I'm going to be attending that. I just did want to say many people in Vermont were very saddened by the loss of Jeffords. He was a very interesting guy. He served Vermont for many years, local level, state level, in the House of Representatives, in the U.S. Senate. Very popular in Vermont. He was a moderate Republican at a time when the Republican Party had a part of its party as moderate Republicans. Those days are long past. And I think, as many listeners will remember, in an act of extraordinary courage, in 2001, he left the Republican Party, became an independent, and gave the majority over to the Democrats, which put him, for the first time, I think, in his life, really in the focus of huge amounts of national attention. And what he said, and he said it publicly and he said it privately, is that he never believed that he really left the Republican Party. He believed that the Republican Party left him because it moved so far to the right. So his views over the years never changed. He was a moderate Republican, conservative on a lot of issues, believed in the environment, believed in women's rights, believed in education, very good on disability rights. That was his views. And he saw his entire party move very far to the right. And he said, in an act of extraordinary courage, because it was not easy for him personally or, for his friends in the Republican Party, he said, no, I've had enough. So I just wanted to mention that we've lost Senator Jim Jeffords. His funeral will be tomorrow. Tom, one of the things that you and I chat about often, but I want to reiterate right now, is the degree to which we as Americans, we have got to determine what the most important issues are facing our country. We can't let media do it for us. And one of the things that drives me a little bit nuts is that there is a significant amount of agreement in this country on what some of the most important issues are that we face, and broad agreement across the political spectrum. I don't want to overstate it, but a whole lot of agreement about what we should be doing about it. And yet, for a variety of reasons, a lot of it having to do with the corporate media, a lot of it having to do with special interest and powerful interest, we do not focus on those issues. And we do not have the capability as a result of mobilizing the vast majority of the American people around issues which they perceive to be enormously important. Let me just give you a few examples. Every poll that I have seen tells me that the American people are profoundly disgusted with the Supreme Court Citizens United decision, and that they do not want billionaire families like the Koch brothers or Sheldon Adelson to be able to buy elections. They understand that is not what American democracy is supposed to be about. But as a nation, we're not focusing on that issue. We have got to overturn Citizens United. I'm happy to say there will be a constitutional amendment on the floor of the U.S. Senate. I hope the media covers this issue, because it is terribly important for the future of American democracy that billionaires cannot spend as much money as they want electing candidates whose job in life is to represent the wealthy and the powerful. So that's issue number one. People want campaign finance reform, and I don't think we discussed that enough. Number two, vast majority of the American people understand that the middle class of this country is disappearing, and that real unemployment is not 6.2%. It's in fact over 12% if you count those people who have given up looking for work and those people who are working part-time. Worse yet, youth unemployment is 20%. And when we look at what goes on in Ferguson and other African-American communities around this country, we should appreciate that youth African-American unemployment is 35%. In some areas, St. Louis suburbs, it's higher than that. Now, am I missing something, Tom, or do you think this might be an issue that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, this is absolutely.
I mean, you're talking about the wiping out or the destruction of an entire generation of African Americans. If you don't get a job after you graduate high school and you wait 2 or 3 years, you know what? The likelihood of you getting a job is less and less. The likelihood of you ending up in jail is more and more. This is clearly a crisis situation. Again, it's not just the African American community. In my own state, about 17% of young people, these are kids who have either dropped out of high school or graduated high school today, are not in school, and have no jobs. To me, that's a crisis for the future of this country. When you talk about issues like taxation in America, poll after poll tells me that the American people do not agree with the situation where 1 out of 4 corporations in this country pay zero in taxes, including some of the largest corporations in America, where we lose about $100 billion a year because these guys stash their money in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and other tax havens. And meanwhile now, through this inversion policy, they're looking to hook up and merge with some other companies in Europe so they can even avoid American taxes to a greater degree. You know what? Overwhelmingly, the American people don't agree with that. A few years ago, there was a whole lot of discussion. Every time you turn on the TV about all these guys, Republicans, some Democrats, talking about the need for, quote-unquote, entitlement reform. Whenever you hear anybody talking about entitlement reform, what they're really talking about, except they don't have the courage to be honest about it, is cuts in Social Security and in Medicare. You ask the American people, whether they're the Tea Party or Occupy Wall Street people, they say that is insane. Seniors are struggling today. We have a whole lot of seniors and a growing number of seniors living in poverty. Seniors can't afford to pay their housing expenses, their medicine expenses, heating houses, their food. And then there are people who are talking about cutting Social Security. Overwhelmingly, the American people say, no, that's a bad idea. And yet most of what we hear in the media is, oh, my goodness, we just have got to cut Social Security. And that is total bogus. There are ways that we can extend Social Security for decades, and there are ways that we can expand Social Security, increase the benefits that people get simply by lifting the cap, which now exists, so that somebody who's making $117,000 pays as much in Social Security taxes as somebody making $10 million a year. And there's another issue out there that I will not tell you everybody agrees on. They don't. But a good majority of the American people understand that climate change is real, that climate change is caused by human activity, that we are already seeing devastating problems in this country and around the world, and that we have to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel into energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And yet you have the energy companies, the coal companies, the Koch brothers, the oil companies, gas companies, people with a whole lot of money, spend a whole lot of time advertising on television, have prevented, I think, us from having that kind of thorough debate of what it means if we do not transform our energy system. What's my point? My point is that on many, many issues, in fact, some of the most important issues facing our country, there is widespread agreement. But what very often happens, we get deflected onto this issue, onto that issue. Today's the news of the day, and tomorrow that's what we're talking about. And we stay away from and not focus and not come together on issues that impact tens and tens of millions of people, and not only ourselves, but our children and our grandchildren and the future of this country. So my hope is that we aggressively focus on those issues that bring us together so the government works for all people, not just the 1%.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour a day early today, so that Senator Sanders can go to Senator Jeffords' funeral and tomorrow. And so we'll be taking your calls right after the break. Be sure to check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can check out the new video we just released yesterday, narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio and me, at greenworldrising.org. And welcome back. Tom, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Network in Zephyr, Texas. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, I was wondering why the Veterans Administration doesn't do more retraining. It seems to me that our police forces are being filled up with veterans, and they don't have any other training. We used to do training, for other kind of jobs, and I wonder why we don't do that anymore.
Tom, that's a very good question. I can tell you that right now, and I would hope that we could expand employment opportunities and job training opportunities for veterans. Employment rate for younger veterans coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan is too high. We have some money in programs. We need to do more. But I think when you look at the reality of people giving up years of their economic life to serve in the military, when they come back, we've got to help them get reestablishing in good-paying jobs in their community and get the training they need to do that work. So I think your point is very well taken.
Monica in Coates, North Carolina, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV satellite system. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
I'd like to know about the fracking bill that got passed in Washington, because I've been to some town halls here, and I found out that North Carolina is not only planning to frack the mountains, they plan on fracking the ocean. And I found out that the only reason they are able to frack the ocean is because the Senate, Congress, and the President. Now, I know that the President is a whore to the oil companies and the gas company especially. By the way he was talking, I knew that from day one. But the Senate, what on earth happened?
No, I don't think that is, well, I can't tell you. I don't think that's exactly correct. I think fracking is going on. I am opposed to fracking. I think here in the state of Vermont, we have the state legislature, if I'm not mistaken, has passed legislation prohibiting fracking. Some other states have done that. So I can't answer your question definitively. I don't know what the Senate did, but all I can tell you is I think fracking is a bad idea. We're seeing it endangering a water supply, and water is going to be an increasingly precious commodity in future years. Bottom line here is that instead of fracking, we have to move very aggressively to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
Bernie, we just have 30 seconds. I don't know if Michael told you that we released yesterday a new video that Leonardo DiCaprio and I are narrating. I wrote it, and you're in it.
Oh.
So it's over at greenworldrising.org. It's 7 minutes long. It's on YouTube. It's available to the world.
Listen,
Leonardo.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
This is an issue that we just need to get the word out on, because we're taking on very, very powerful energy forces, big oil and big coal and big gas, who choose to continue to produce fossil fuel despite what it is doing to our planet. So thank you very much for...
Yeah, well, there's a very, very eloquent clip of you in there, and you did a great job. We will be right back with Senator Sanders it's our Brunch with Bernie Thursday today. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Bernie Sanders on the line. It's we're doing our national town hall meeting a day early. Today is Thursday, and Senator Sanders is live with us. And John in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator, I just was wondering what kind of bills are being proposed to stop corporations. Like, for instance, here Medtronic is not going to pay any taxes because they're buying Covidin, which is an Irish company, and they may be relocating over there. I don't quite understand exactly how they're achieving this, but the problem is that company started here with support from the infrastructure and education, both from the person who started the corporation was Earl Bakken, and the engineers, they received all their education at the University of Minnesota. the hospital that they first developed the heart pacemaker is a local hospital, so they received help in all these different areas, and yet, they're saying goodbye to, I guess, Minnesota and the rest of the country and, taking advantage. I mean, it's really repulsive when a healthcare company, which, relies a lot on the, expenditure from the federal government on healthcare, when they decide...
John, let's get Bernie's thoughts on this. Okay?
Sure. I mean, I agree 100% with what you're saying. It's called the inversion, and what companies are doing is merging with European countries, in this case, I guess, an Irish company, to be able to take advantage of the tax breaks that Irish companies may have. Just a couple of points to be made. It is an outrage. Back in 1952, as I recall, corporations contributed about 32% of federal revenue. Today, that number is about 9% and has gone down steadily. And you see a number of companies who are trying to do what this Minnesota company is doing. Good news is that Walgreens gave some thought to doing that. And I think as a result of millions of people standing up and say that is an outrage and we're prepared not to go into Walgreens rethought that. But bottom line is we need legislation to prevent that. I've got legislation, as Senate 11 has legislation, and there are different pieces of legislation that have been filed which would prevent that. We've got to generate a lot of support to stop it. If corporations do not pay their fair share of taxes, either we don't have the money to provide the services for the middle class and working families of this country in terms of education, healthcare, whatever it may be, or second of all, more of the tax burden falls on low and middle income people who can least afford to pay it. So it is a very big issue, and we've got to work aggressively to address it.
Roger in San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, and thank you both for fighting for our country, and especially you, Senator Sanders, for fighting so hard for vets. My question is, what do you think of the VA contracting out services like vision checkups? I just had the best vision checkup. It was very detailed, and by the local obstetrician school, and I just want to have your thoughts on...
Was that at a VA?
Yeah.
Here's what we got, Roger, and what the bill was about. I worked very, very hard to pass the most significant piece of veterans legislation passed in a long time. It addresses a couple of problems. Number one, the immediate crisis is that in some VA facilities around the country, and Phoenix, Arizona comes to mind, simple truth is there are very, very long waiting lines. So people walk into the VA, they just can't get into the VA for many, many months. That's unacceptable. So what we did is put a lot of money into this legislation to enable veterans in that situation, long waiting lines, to be able to go out to private doctors or community health centers or Department of Defense bases or Indian Health Service facilities in order to get health care. But what we also did in that bill is put $5 billion into the VA to allow them to hire more doctors, nurses, other medical personnel, expand their facilities, plus another $1.5 billion to build another 27 major facilities around the country. So we address the issue of veterans being able to get quality care in a timely manner. So we are working hard to make sure that the VA has the facility, has the capability, and the facilities to provide quality care to all veterans who are eligible in a timely manner. And that's something we're going to keep working on. Last point there is, despite a lot of bad publicity, some of it very justified, most veterans perceive, as Roger does, that when they walk into a VA, they get good quality care. And that's something we want to continue.
Okay. Matt in Durham, North Carolina, listening on 97.9 FM. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Tom, Senator Sanders. My name's Matt. Had an international question. I was wondering, Senator, if you thought it would be good for us to prop up the UN now while we still have a chance, as the U.S. as a superpower is sort of waning, and all the things are going on around the world. If we could sort of, work on getting 75% of the world consensus, we can sort of help some of these problems and deal with the Security Council issues.
Well, Matt, thanks very much. That is a very good question, and I think that anyone who sees what's going on around this world internationally gets very, very distressed. Whether it is Israel, Gaza, whether it's what's going on in Iraq, and the rising of this ISIS group, whether it's the incredibly, incredibly bloody civil war in Syria, whether it is the Ukraine and Russia. We are living in very troubling times. And if we believe, and I certainly do, that it is not the function of the United States of America and our military, to be the policemen of the world, to be the nation builders of the world, but if we also believe that we don't want to see women and children slaughtered in countries around the world, and something has to happen. Clearly, Matt is right in that there has to be an international presence, an international effort. ISIS in Iraq today is not just an American issue. It is these are real fundamentalist terrorists, and who are prepared to kill anybody who doesn't agree with their idea of a 7th century caliphate. So Matt is right. I don't know the exact mechanism, but we do need increased international efforts, people coming together around the world to address it.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. Our Brunch with Bernie hour a day early here on Thursday. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And be sure to check out Bernie's website, his Facebook page, his website, sanders.senate.gov, and also our new video at greenworldrising.org. Check out our newest video on global warming called Carbon, narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio and me, Thom Hartmann. You can find it at greenworldrising.org. And be sure to share it with your friends. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early. Senator Sanders on the line with us. And Bernie, you're still here?
I am right here.
Okay, great. Karen in Lake River, New York. You are on the air, Senator Sanders. Karen?
Mr. Sanders, my name is Karen, and I have one question. When are we going to stop Mr. Netanyahu in Israel from bombing Gaza? How many more children have to die under 17?
Her phone is really bad, Senator. She asked, when are we going to stop Mr. Netanyahu from killing Palestinian children?
All right. Well, Karen, this is a very, very depressing issue, because this is a situation that has gone on and on and on, and I think not only is it not getting better, it's likely getting worse, because I think as a result of this war, the hatred on both sides is going to grow and intensify. I don't have a magical answer to this problem. I don't know that anybody does. I think the two ingredients for a solution, a long-term solution to the problem, is a two-state solution. I think Israel has a right to live and to exist with security. I think the Palestinians are entitled to a state of their own, controlling their own political life and controlling their economy. And I think that's the long-term solution that we have got to fight for. And I hope the United States, and as a caller a few moments ago mentioned, it's not just the United States, it's got to be the whole world, helps bring about this solution, of which, we're not seeing. Second of all, I have no it seems to me that Israel, with their sophistication and their weaponry, should not have been attacking buildings where women and children were in, that were under the auspices of the United Nations. On the other hand, I will say that, I don't think that Hamas should be lobbing missiles into Israel, and these missiles in years to come will only become more sophisticated and be able to hit Israeli cities. And to do that at will is wrong. Hamas also used money that was supposed to be used for construction purposes in Gaza and turned that into building tunnels to go into Israel for military purposes. And you got some elements of Hamas, at least, who believe that ultimately Israel should be destroyed. So you got a difficult situation in there, and I think the United States and the rest of the world are going to do everything we can in an intractable situation to try to bring peace to that region, which is hurting so much.
Bill in Alto, Michigan, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Last night I was on YouTube and I ran across a video that was about impeaching the president. And the video said that if they impeach the president and the vice president, that makes John Boehner the president. And I guess my question is have you heard anything on the lawsuit, where the lawsuit is at? And, I guess that's my curiosity. Where is it at right now? Do you know?
Tom, do you know? I don't.
I don't. I
mean, a lot of this is just total politics. And here's the irony of it, Bill. Obama is being sued for ostensibly overreaching, for going beyond his presidential powers, for using executive orders in a number of areas. The reason he is using executive orders is because we have an unprecedented do-nothing Congress led by Republican obstructionism. These are people who are doing nothing on any of the major issues facing this country. In the Senate, we see a record number of filibusters. I mean, I know from personal experience, we managed to pass a good veterans bill last month, but I tried last year to get a veterans bill passed. I got 56 votes. That's a pretty good majority. Couldn't get it past the Senate because the Republicans filibustered it. And this happens on the minimum wage bill. It happens on the extension of long-term unemployment benefits. It happens on pay equity. On virtually every single piece of legislation, the Republicans filibuster, demand 60 votes, and nothing happens. And then when nothing happens, the Republicans say, oh, isn't it terrible that Obama is actually trying to do something in this area or that area? We're going to sue him. The real issue is that we have more Republican obstructionism than we have seen in the modern history of America, and these guys should not be reelected.
Henry in Osceola, Arkansas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
How you doing, Tom? This is Sanders.
Yes.
The thing I want to ask is this. How come a simple legislation bill couldn't be passed? I know everything is complicated in Washington, but basically what I'm thinking is have a bill passed that specifically states if a company or corporation makes $1 in this country, for every dollar you make, you have to pay taxes on it before it's eligible to go overseas anywhere.
Well, Henry, the answer to your question, going beyond your particular question, as to why corporations have, A, been allowed to shut down in America, move to China, throw millions of people out of work, and then bring their products back into this country, or B, move abroad, which is what you're talking about, in order to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, that's not a complicated answer. The answer is that when you have big money interests controlling what goes on in the Congress, owning the Republican Party today, and some Democrats, mostly the Republicans, that's what happens. If you are a member of Congress who has received huge campaign contributions from these corporations, and these corporations want to go abroad in order to pay their fair share of taxes, well, that's how you're going to vote. And that is why we have to address issues like campaign finance reform, so that we can make sure the corporations in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. It is beyond belief that you have some of the largest corporations in this country in recent years, in a given year, paying zero in federal income tax, and some of them actually get money back from the IRS.
Elliot in Marshall, North Carolina. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I just had a quick question for Bernie. It's kind of on the same issue, but these efforts if we consider ourselves a democracy and everybody's supposed to have a say-so in what goes on, all these efforts, whether they're local redistricting, voter ID, and the Supreme Court justice decisions, to limit that, why is that not considered treason? That's just a question for Bernie.
Well, Elliot, the issue is we can define anything any way we want. But the bottom line is these things are happening within the context of America jurisprudence and the American political system. And the question is, how do we end up with a Republican Party now, which is essentially owned by a handful of billionaires? And how do you end up with a situation where we have a Democratic Party which is not prepared to fight as hard as it should for working people? How do you end up with a Supreme Court which on 5-4 decisions are making monumental decisions impacting our entire way of life, and Citizens United comes to my mind. And I tell you, I mean, I've said this before, the struggle right now that we are engaged in is whether or not we're going to keep the democratic foundations of America, one person, one vote, whether or not we're going to have a middle class, or we're going to end up with just a handful of billionaire families, controlling, most of the wealth in this country. That's the struggle we're in, whether this country moves to an oligarchic form of society. And, Elliot, we can call these things anything you want to call them. That doesn't matter. What matters is, what do we do to turn this around? There's an election coming up, and here's the dynamics of that election, pure and simple. According to the pundits, and they may well be right, 60% of the American people are not going to vote. And of the 60% who don't vote, 70 to 80% will be low-income working people, people who are making 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. They will be young people under 21 whose future lies in front of them. They are not going to vote. Meanwhile, the Koch brothers and other billionaires will spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in order to elect candidates to represent the rich and the powerful. That is the dynamic of American politics today. And if we don't change that, get more people involved in the political process, end Citizens United, move, in my view, to public funding of elections, I worry very much about the future of this country and whether or not we will, in fact, end up as an oligarchy with a few billionaire families controlling both the economic and political life of the nation.
John in Grass Valley, California. You're on the air with Bernie.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Tom and Bernie, for the forum that you present for viewers and questions. My question specifically is related to the healthcare industry in this country today, which for years has been controlled by more pills, and more pills control the symptoms of the pills in the first place.
John, we just have a little less than a minute before the break. A quick question, please.
Presently, the National Institute of Health is 4 years behind on reviewing recommendations that they've made, and the Dickey-Wicker Amendment that was passed by George Bush has precluded any changes and locked this up as another unaddressed political issue.
So the net, John, is why has stem cell research been held up since the Bush administration?
Yes, with the Dickey-Wicker Amendment and the National
Senator Sanders?
Well, I think John answered it. It's been held up, and there are political. I mean, it ties into people's. I mean, to me, it's insane why stem cell research is not going forward. It can give us very valuable information about the human body and how we treat disease in the future. But it is tied up by some people who see this somehow is related to the abortion issue.
Wow. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting a day early here on Thursday on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for Bernie right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
And be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can also find his Facebook page, and you can see him in our new video over at greenworldrising.org. And welcome back. Michael in Imperial Beach, California, watching Free Speech TV on the DirecTV satellite. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Mr. Hartman and Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders, Tom told us once that the Iroquois Nation decided to let women be the only ones that could vote. Senator, what are your thoughts about doing what Norway does and mandate that 40% of our Senate and House be female? Thank you.
Well, I tell you, Michael, that's a good question. I think that, frankly, that is going to happen within a few years, whether you mandate anything or not. I was just researching this the other day. I think back in 1979, 1980 or something, there were 2 women in the United States Senate. Today there are 20. I think we have 3 states where both senators and women, states where New Hampshire, state of Washington, where women are senators and governor. I think one of the great breakthroughs that we have seen in this country in the last 30 or 40 years is the fact that women have made huge gains in a whole lot of areas, including politics. and I have no reason to expect that within a reasonably short period of time, half of the elected officials of this country or more will be women, and that's exactly what should be the case.
Okay. Corky, in Hilton, New York, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. Hello, Tom. Yeah, why can't we have a ballot initiative on whether Congress deserves a raise or not? We, the people that live here in the real world, we get evaluated on our work performances every year, and they decide whether we get a raise or not. Why are we not allowed to decide whether our employees, the congressmen, deserve a raise or not?
Well, Corky, I guess you'll be happy to know that Congress has not gotten a raise in the last, I think, 3 years. But let me just take your point a little bit further. There are some folks who are very anti-government who think, well, what we got to do is let's cut Congress's pay in half. Let's cut. I should mention that federal employees have been treated very, very poorly in the last few years. And what the end result of all of that stuff is about, Corky, and I don't have a problem, members of Congress have not gotten a raise in 3 years. But if you keep that going indefinitely, what ends up happening is that the only people who are going to be able to serve in Congress will be wealthy people. And that's kind of the direction that some people want to go, make the U.S. Congress a House of Lords, which we're already moving in a significant way towards. I don't know the exact number, but a significant number of the people in the House and the Senate are already millionaires. So you can cut congressional salaries and all that stuff. The end result is that you're going to have a body dominated just by the very, very wealthy. The truth of the matter is, the real issue to my mind of why this Congress is dysfunctional, it has to do with the role that money plays in American politics. The fact that most people to get elected need either to be wealthy themselves or go to the very, very rich and end up representing corporations and the wealthy when they vote.
And I think that just in this last year, the House of Representatives passed the 50% are multimillionaires threshold for the first time in history. I'll have to check.
You end up with a House of Lords, and people are not going to worry about congressional salaries. They don't need it.
Yeah.
The only people who will serve will be very wealthy people.
There you go. We'll be back with more of Senator Bernie Sanders right after this. 10 minutes before the hour, Thom Hartmann here with you. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us, taking calls a day early. To Marcia in Angier, North Carolina. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Y'all getting a lot of calls from North Carolina today.
We are.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
Yeah, so Monica from Coates, who called about the fracking, that's my protest buddy. We went to Occupy together in Washington, D.C. Listen, just in case you don't know, Moral Monday is having a week-long event starting August 22nd, and each day is going to be a different issue. So if you need a ride, we can do the fracking.
Well, you know what, Marcia? I am going to be in North Carolina next week.
You're going to be here?
I am going to be here. I'm going to be speaking to the American Legion in Charlotte. We have a meeting in Raleigh, and maybe I'll drop in and say hello to you guys.
Well, it'll be in the afternoon and down by the legislative building when you come to Raleigh. Real quick, so my question, I have a coworker, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I told him I get to talk to the senator when I need to. He's a senior citizen. He's over 65. He gets Medicare. He only works a couple of days a week, so he doesn't get disqualified. And he has a spouse that's a housewife that's never worked. And he has to pay, I believe he said, $100 for each of them a month for his towards his medical coverage, even though he has Medicare. And he wants to know why he can't get the Affordable Care Act, because it would be cheaper based on his income. But he said,
well, what you tell me is North Carolina has not expanded Medicaid, have they?
That's correct.
All right, well, then that's the answer. And in fact, when I go to the South, that's an issue we're going to be talking about. But I think Marcia raises a very important issue, and that is the Affordable Care Act, one of the strong provisions of the Affordable Care Act, was the expansion of Medicaid. And the federal government was going to pay all of the bills for the first 3 years, I think 90% after that. And yet you had Republican state after Republican state willing to sacrifice the health and lives of their poorest people and deny them the expansion of Medicaid. And I think that is simply an outrage. We are the only country in the industrialized world that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. Affordable Care Act was a modest step forward, but one of the good provisions would have been a major, major expansion of Medicaid. Some states took advantage of that, are doing quite well. Kentucky comes to mind. Other states like North Carolina have not. I think that's terribly wrong.
Would Medicaid cover people over 65?
Sure.
It does.
If you're on Medicaid, you will get benefits that are, you can have Medicare and Medicaid, and you would have benefits that you would have if you're only on Medicare.
That's great. Paul in Levittown, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Tom. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Senator Sanders. I just have a quick idea that I haven't heard anywhere. The right likes to scream that corporate taxes are too high and we need to increase the tax base. So I've just thought about a simple plan where we eliminate, I know this is the simple part of it, but we eliminate our free trade agreements and actually reinforce free trade again. And then for an American corporation, we eliminate all the loopholes except for one. And if they employ 70% or more of their employees in the United States, they get a 25% tax rate. And for every 1,000 employees they employ in the United States, they get another % discount. So,
Paul, that is, I got the gist of what you're saying, and we can argue about the details, but your main point is, A, that our current trade policies, which have resulted in the shutdown of some 50,000 American factories in the last 15 or so years, is a disaster, and you're absolutely right. And second of all, the point that you are making, and we can do it one way or the other, is in terms of tax policy, let's reward those companies who are reinvesting in America while hiring people in this country and not reward those companies that want to go abroad. And I think that point is well taken. There are a number of pieces of legislation, and Dick Durbin has something in which more or less move in the direction that you are proposing, and I think that's a great idea.
Mark in San Francisco, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, gentlemen. I was wondering, Bernie, if it would make sense to get a committee together to look at some of these oil companies and have some of them maybe invest in clean energy, get incentives so that they would start to change over to green energy. I think if you could do that and you get one or two, then the rest would fall in place.
Good point, Mark. Some of them, in fact, are doing that, but nowhere near to the degree that they can or should be doing. And the problem is they are making companies like ExxonMobil, can't remember what it is, I think they made $9 billion in profits in the last quarter. They are just hugely profitable doing what they do right now, and that's where they're making money. But what we need to do is, through a variety of mechanisms, most importantly, legislative policy, understand that we've got to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. We can and should provide incentives to do that. We also should be taxing carbon, which is legislation that Barbara Boxer and I have in. But we must. We are facing a planetary crisis. And in a variety of ways, we have got to go from fossil fuel to energy efficiency where there's huge potential, making our country and our homes and our transportation system more energy efficient, and move to sustainable energies like wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass. And we're already seeing a whole lot of jobs being created in those areas, but we've got to do more. And when we do that and become a leader, we can work with China, India, Russia, and other countries with new technologies to move us aggressively in those areas. Bottom line is, if we don't do that, this planet is in very serious shape.
Senator, 30 seconds to wrap it up.
All right. Look, the main point that I would make, and maybe conclude the program with, country faces enormous problems. We are not going to solve those problems unless millions and millions of people from all walks of life get actively involved in the political process. That's what democracy is about. And if we have elections in which 60% of the people don't vote, large numbers of working people don't vote, and in which the Koch brothers and other billionaires spend hundreds of millions of dollars, in my view, the future of this country is not particularly good.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thanks so much, Senator.
Okay, my pleasure, Tom.
Great having you on.
Bye-bye.